Hello, my dear friends. How are you doing? Hope you are having an amazing day and not having to deal with drama. Ready for new stories I have for you today? Let's go to the first one. And don't forget to listen to the end of the story, guys, to hear my insights. Enjoy the stories. And don't forget to like and subscribe. And of course, don't forget to leave a comment. I, 29 male, went no contact with my parents 5 years ago. It wasn't a single explosive moment that caused the break. It was more like a slow erosion. I grew up in a household where I was always the disappointment, the burden, the afterthought. My younger sister, Samantha, 27 female, was the golden child. From the moment she was born, it was clear that she could do no wrong in their eyes. Samantha was the picture-perfect daughter. Straight A student, class president, dancer, piano player, homecoming queen. She wasn't just good at everything. She was praised constantly and loudly for it. My parents would brag about her achievements, like they were Olympic medals. Every holiday letter was basically a shrine to her accomplishments. Me. I was the quiet kid who liked drawing, reading, and building model airplanes. I was diagnosed with ADHD at 10, which my parents never really believed in. They said I was just lazy, distracted, and needed to try harder. I struggled in school, and every parent-teacher conference ended with a lecture and a comparison to Samantha. Why can't you be more like your sister? Your sister would never have gotten a D. Your sister doesn't need constant hand-holding. That was the course of my teenage years. When I expressed an interest in pursuing art in college, they laughed, literally laughed. My father told me to grow up and find a real career. My mother said, "We're not wasting money on a fantasy." They refused to pay for art school, but they dropped tens of thousands on Samantha's Ivy League tuition. She went on to study business and eventually joined the family business, an upscale boutique wine company started by my grandparents. I left home at 18, took night classes, worked retail jobs, and slowly, painfully, built a quiet, small life for myself. I'm not rich or famous, but I'm stable, and I'm proud of that. I kept in touch with my grandmother, my dad's mother, the only person in the family who ever treated me with love. She used to slip me birthday cards with handwritten letters and small checks that said, "just in case." She never pushed, never asked questions, just kept the line open. She owns the family business, though it's been more symbolic in recent years as Samantha and my parents handled the day-to-day. 2 months ago, I got a surprise in the mail. A formal invitation to my grandmother's 75th birthday party. It was embossed, elegant, and hand-signed by her. At the bottom was a little note in her handwriting. "Please come." It would mean the world to me. I was torn. I hadn't seen my parents or Samantha in 5 years. I knew they wouldn't be happy to see me. But I missed my grandmother, and after everything she did to keep our bond alive, I felt I owed it to her. So I RSVP'd yes. I rented a decent suit, brought her a gift, and made the long drive to the estate where the party was being held. As soon as I walked in, I felt eyes on me. The room was filled with family, extended relatives, business partners, and friends. My parents were near the bar. When they saw me, my mother's face turned to stone. My father gave me that tight-lipped, disapproving grimace I knew too well. Samantha looked like she had just seen a ghost. I stayed near the edges, spoke politely to a few relatives I hadn't seen in years, and waited for my grandmother to arrive. About 15 minutes into mingling, my parents approached me. My mother hissed under her breath that I had no right to be there. She said it was a family event, and that I had made my choice years ago. My father said I was only there to cause drama, and that I should leave with what little dignity I still had. I calmly told them that I had been invited by the guest of honor, and that I wasn't going anywhere. They scoffed, told me not to embarrass myself, and walked away. I held it together, but I was shaking. I hadn't seen them in 5 years, and still, they could reduce me to feeling like a worthless, unwanted kid in under a minute. Eventually, my grandmother arrived, elegant as ever in a navy blue gown, walking with a cane but still radiating warmth. When she saw me, her face lit up. She walked straight toward me and gave me a hug that felt like a lifeline. She whispered, "Thank you for coming," and kissed my cheek. That hug alone was worth the awkwardness. Dinner was served, and after dessert, she stood up to give a toast. It started the way you'd expect. Thank yous, fond memories, stories about her youth. But then she dropped a bombshell. She said, "This year, I've been thinking a lot about legacy, about family, about fairness." Then she said, "Many of you know that the family business has been my life's work, and many of you assume that it will pass along a certain line. But I've decided to do things a little differently." The room got quiet. My parents stiffened. Samantha sat up straighter. Then my grandmother looked directly at me and said, "The only person who has shown me real integrity, independence, and resilience in this family is my grandson. Me. He has never asked for anything. He has never played politics. He has simply lived his life with dignity, even when others treated him as disposable." A murmur went through the crowd. I felt frozen. She continued, "Which is why I've decided that when the time comes, he will inherit the family business. He will be the majority shareholder, and I will be transitioning decision-making responsibilities to him over the next year." Then she pulled out an envelope and handed it to my mother. "This is a copy of my updated will. I suggest you read it before you continue telling him he doesn't belong." You could hear a pin drop. My mother's face turned a shade I didn't know skin could turn. She opened the envelope with trembling hands, scanned the first page, and stood up so quickly her chair scraped loudly against the floor. "This is ridiculous," she snapped. "You can't be serious." My father looked like he had been punched. Samantha's mouth was open in shock. My grandmother simply sat back down and sipped her wine. Then came the storm. Accusations. Tears. My mother said I had manipulated her mother, that I had wormed my way back in to steal what rightfully belonged to Samantha. My father said I was a disgrace and that I'd dragged the family name through the mud by abandoning them for years. Samantha just sat there, staring at the table, humiliated. Other guests tried to calm them down, but it was chaos. I didn't say a word. I didn't need to. My grandmother had spoken, and for once, I felt like I didn't need to defend myself. Eventually, my parents stormed out. Samantha followed, but not before shooting me a look I couldn't quite read. It wasn't anger, it was something else. Hate. That was 2 weeks ago. Since then, I've received a flurry of emails. My parents have called me every name in the book. They've accused me of betrayal, of orchestrating a coup, of taking advantage of an elderly woman. But I didn't ask for any of this. I went to a birthday party to honor the only person in my family who ever made me feel seen. And she gave me something I never asked for. Validation, trust, a future. I've spoken with my grandmother multiple times since. She's serious about the transition. She wants me to learn the ropes and help modernize the business. She said she'd been watching from afar, waiting to see if I'd grow bitter or grow strong. She said I grew strong. And now I'm left wondering, am I the a-hole for going to the party, knowing it would cause drama, and accepting grandmother's inheritance despite my sister was working hard to get it? OP is definitely not in the wrong here. OP showed up to a birthday party with grace, despite years of emotional abandonment and abuse from his parents, and still they tried to humiliate him and push him out. The only reason this exploded is because OP's grandmother finally exposed the family's dirty little secret, that they've mistreated OP for decades while putting OP's sister on a pedestal. This wasn't about inheritance, it was about dignity. OP's grandmother saw what they refused to see, OP's worth. OP didn't manipulate anyone. OP has already won the battle they never knew OP was fighting. And now let's hear community's opinion. This is generational favoritism coming back to bite them, and it's long overdue. Your parents wanted a showpiece daughter and a scapegoat son, and when the scapegoat walked away and refused to play the part anymore, they lost control. They didn't just mistreat you, they erased you. Now they're reaping what they sowed. The fact that your grandmother not only saw through it, but publicly corrected it, is powerful. She didn't give you a gift, she gave you justice. You're not the a-hole at all. You honored her invitation, stayed respectful, and said nothing while they revealed their own ugliness. That's called class. As someone who was the golden child, let me say, this stuff messes people up. Your sister may have gotten the praise and investment, but it came with pressure and blind entitlement. You, meanwhile, were left to sink or swim, and you swam. You earned your life through effort and humility, and your grandmother noticed. This isn't about money. It's about validation. It's about someone finally saying, "You mattered too. You're not the a-hole. You didn't crash the party. You were invited." Your parents tried to punish you for existing one last time, and it backfired spectacularly. I'm a grandmother, and this one brought me to tears. Your grandmother sounds like the kind of woman I aspire to be: fierce, loving, and unwilling to let injustice pass quietly. You are not the asshole. You were the child they tried to erase, and she stood up and said, "No more." Don't carry their shame on your shoulders. You didn't destroy the family dynamic. They did. All you did was walk into the room, and their guilt did the rest. Live up to the trust your grandmother placed in you. And when you walk into that office to take over the family business, do it with your head held high. My 26 female grandparents have 3 children: my dad, my aunt, and my uncle. I have one sister, and my aunt and uncle do not have any children. However, my uncle got married about 3 years ago, and his wife, Mary, has 3 kids. Her kids have barely made an effort to be part of my uncle's life, although he does see them from time to time, because they have a good relationship with their mother. They've made even less of an attempt with the rest of us. I've never even met them. My grandparents have tried to get to know them, but with little luck. My grandparents bought a fairly nice house when I was a baby. I was unaware until a few weeks ago, but it seems that their plan was always to sell the house whenever they get ready to move and split the money among their grandchildren. I guess my dad and his siblings will get whatever is left in their will. So this is how they wanted to set up their grandchildren. They've saved a good amount of money for themselves, and now they're moving into a retirement community. They sold the house, and my sister and I are each getting about $250,000. This is really useful for me and my husband. We've been looking to get a bigger house because we're about to have a second kid. It will allow us to put a sizable down payment on that and still have a lot to go into savings. My sister plans to pay off her student loans and then put most of it in savings as well. We're really grateful, obviously, to our grandparents because we both really feel like this will set us up well for the future. My uncle called me yesterday and said that Mary is very upset her children were not included. She says that they are my grandparents' grandchildren now too and deserve a cut. My grandparents have basically said it's up to us if we want to share, but that they left it to us for a reason. I'm torn because we had plans for that money. If they had made any effort at all to be grandchildren to my grandparents, I wouldn't hesitate. But they didn't even meet my grandparents until we're in our late teens, early 20s, and they have made little effort since. Would I be the a-hole if I didn't share? Not the a-hole. Your grandparents had plenty of opportunities to change their will. Mary's only been in your family 3 years. She is absolutely 100% wrong to count on something for her kids, and she is 1000% wrong in trying to pressure you for it. She's a gold-digging fortune seeker. Tell her you are honoring your grandparents' wishes, and that is the last on this topic. Your uncle is a real jerk for doing this. I'd block him and his wife. Not the a-hole. Seems from the information that Mary only married your uncle for the money. If Mary and her kids do not care about your grandparents, then they do not deserve anything from them. You have a plan for the money, and it will really help you a lot. You should not share that money with them. They seem to only care about being a part of the family when money is involved, which is a huge red flag. Not the a-hole. They are not your grandparents' grandchildren. Your uncle's stepkids haven't made any kind of effort to interact with your grandparents, and they have only been your uncle's stepkids for 3 years. If your grandparents wanted them to have any of the money, they would have arranged that specifically. You and your sister are under no obligation to share any of the money with them, no matter what your uncle's wife thinks. Your uncle can, if he wishes, share his eventual inheritance with his stepkids once your grandparents pass away. My sister-in-law, my husband's sister, is a mom of 4. Her older 2 are with her ex-husband. Their marriage ended after she cheated on him with her ex and got pregnant. She had 2 kids with ex, but he didn't like the responsibility stuff and bailed. She was left with a name and no idea where he went. She never met his family, and the friends of his that she knew didn't tell her where he was. She knows he's not working or anything legally now, because the courts could not find him. Which was honestly no surprise to my husband or I, because he seemed like the type to do whatever to get out of responsibility. But she saw him as this amazing guy. Her ex-husband is still involved in the lives of her older kids. Sister-in-law has been diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. She's been told they can only extend her life a little and make it more comfortable for her. This is tragic, and we have been supportive. But she has been hell-bent on trying to make her husband take all 4 kids when she dies. But he's only willing to raise their 2. Sister-in-law has spent weeks on this, when in reality, she needs to be making sure the kids are taken care of before anything happens. My husband spoke to her about it, and she said she wants her kids to stay together, that her younger kids need their older siblings, and that she fears her older kids will never accept the younger ones if they're separated at this point, because they are not close to the younger 2 at all. She doesn't want my husband and I because we parent very different. She doesn't want her mom because she's a widow and aging. She wants the kids kept together. She wants them raised in the same house. She knows her ex-husband would never let someone else raise his kids, so she's focusing everything on trying to make him take the younger 2. Her health had a setback last week, and even then she continued to focus on her ex-husband and neglected to find someone else to care for her kids. My husband tried yet again to talk to her, but she was not hearing him, so I told her she needs to come to terms with the fact that her kids will not grow up in the same house, but she can ensure her younger 2 are cared for, and she needs to figure out a plan for them if she doesn't want any of us, because the only other option is foster care. She called me a monster and told me to leave her alone. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. This is hard. I can see why she wants them together, but she needs to be realistic about this, or they could end up without anywhere to go. I would quietly check the laws where you are and see what happens if nothing is specified. If it's just a matter of you stepping in and offering to take them, great. But if there's any chance they'll end up in the foster system, I would maybe suggest talking to her again. Not the a-hole. The ex with the 2 older has no responsibility towards these 2 younger kids, and they would be a constant reminder of what she did to him. Being cheated on is not something to get over easily, and when she chose the other guy over him in the end, I wouldn't take them either. There are consequences to actions, and you are right. She needs to accept the ex will not take them, and she needs to find a good place for them. Not the a-hole. But the truth is that if she fails to plan anything, family members will still have the opportunity to take in the kids. So if you and your husband want to take them in, you should just go ahead and start planning for that eventuality, rather than continuing to argue with her over something she's clearly unwilling to accept at this point. I, 35 male, was one of those kids that knew exactly what I wanted to do when I grew up. In order to remain anonymous, I'll simply say I've always dreamed of doing job X at company Y. My whole career has been based on getting this job and working for this company. So, needless to say, when I finally got an interview with company Y, I was ecstatic. After a very lengthy interview process, I received a phone call yesterday letting me know I had gotten the job. I was so excited. I immediately called my parents, who were so proud of me. My dad suggested that we go out for dinner to celebrate at our family special occasion restaurant. They wanted to take me and my sister Megan, 33 female, out to celebrate the achievement. I was riding on cloud 9. I called my sister to tell her the news and the dinner plans. She congratulated me, but told me she wouldn't be able to come. My mood immediately dropped, and I asked her why not. She told me that she had plans already with her deceased husband Miguel's family. I explained to her that this was a serious achievement that had taken a lifetime of work, and that I had finally achieved my dream. I told her that I needed her there to celebrate with me. She congratulated me again, but told me that this was a very important family celebration, and she simply could not miss it. For context, Megan and Miguel were married for a few months before he passed. It was really tragic, and she has my deepest sympathies. I understand how important he was to her, although I don't exactly agree with how she's handled his death. I understand her sorrow and sadness, but don't agree that she should be missing out on celebrating my achievements because her husband passed. She can, and does, mourn any other day of the year. But this is a once-in-a-lifetime achievement. I got my dream job, and she of all people should know how much that means to me. This is the part where I may be a bit of an a-hole. I called her out and said that missing out on her actual family celebrations to celebrate her husband's death with his family is a D move. I told her that she couldn't spend the rest of her life obsessing over Miguel, and that at some point she needed to move on. Her obsession with him was ruining our relationship, and once again reiterated that I needed her to be there with me tonight. She actually laughed at me and said that, of course, she was obsessed with him. She said a few other hurtful things before she hung up the phone. My parents and I ended up going out for dinner, just the 3 of us. Today, my sister texted me and said we could go for dinner this weekend if I apologize for acting like such a jerk. But I honestly don't think that I should have to when she missed out on my thing, She also said some hurtful things and doesn't seem to think she's in the wrong at all. So I want to know, am I the a-hole? Everyone's the a-hole. A lot of people are bringing up Day of the Dead. This is honestly something I had never heard of before, so I don't feel like I can be judged for not knowing that. Wow, yes, the a-hole. You have a major case of main character syndrome and need to step back and realize that your sister's life does not and will never revolve around you. She already had other plans. She is still mourning her late husband. Both of those things take priority over celebrating your achievements. You're the a-hole. She already had plans, and those plans meant something to her. You trivialize and characterize her mourning as obsession, yet you expect her to drop things in her own life for you. As the first poster says, it sounds like you've got some profound main character syndrome going on. The D move here was yours. You're the a-hole. Actually, you were the a-hole before your horrible comment to your sister. Also, your other comment about not agreeing with how she handled her late husband's death shows how cruel and selfish you are. Since when do you get to decide the right way to grieve? She explained why she couldn't attend your celebration dinner and already had a commitment on a very special day. How hard would it have been for you to have your celebratory dinner a different day? Did you consider that? You had a chance to do the right thing, but wouldn't, because it's all about you. You should be ashamed. Apologize to your sister. My fiancé, 40 male, and I, 36 female, have been together for 2 years. I have 3 kids from my former marriage, 7, 11, and 14. My fiancé loves them and treats them as his own, but he constantly complains about certain behaviors and says that the kids lack some forms of discipline. I never understood what he meant. Mind you, he's a teacher and can take this whole discipline thing a bit far. I noticed that he's been doing some tests lately to see how they'd act in certain situations. For example, he once left his journal lying around to see if any of my kids would snoop. He also would leave money lying around to see who'd touch it. Or even lie, saying, "Who wants Skittles?" to see if any of the kids would come to him downstairs. The recent one, that I wasn't aware of till later, was yesterday. He told the kids that he lost $1 from his pocket and offered $10 to whoever finds it. The kids began searching the house for an hour. My 7 and 11-year-olds couldn't find a thing, but my 14-year-old went to my fiancé and told him he found the dollar and gave it to him. My fiancé lost it and started yelling, "Ah, gotcha now!" My son was confused. Turns out my fiancé didn't lose any money and lied about the dollar to see how the kids would react. My son obviously had failed because he pretended to have found the dollar, but in reality, he took it from his allowance and gave it to my fiancé hoping to get that $10. My fiancé said that because of my son's dishonesty and greed, he'll punish him by taking all his allowance for the month, as well as electronics being taken away for a week. I got into an argument with him and called him delusional because those mind games were getting ridiculous. Besides, it's not like he stole anything from him. He just failed his stupid test, and kids make mistakes and learn. He still talked about how this is about principles and that he's trying to teach my kids to become decent adults. But I thought this has gone too far. I refused to let him punish him. Now he's calling me an enabler and said that this attitude won't be of much help when we get married because it undermines his authority as a parent and enables unacceptable behaviors from my kids. He said, and I quote, "I will not tolerate having greedy and dishonest individuals living under my roof." I think you might have forgotten to write ex-fiancé. He is clearly playing mind games with your kids, and your kids do not need that in their life. Everyone sucks here. Not the a-hole. Your fiancé sounds like the kind of man who should not be around your kids anymore. There is lots of good grown people who would fail those tests. What does he want your kids to become? Opie Taylor from the Andy Griffith Show? No, that is not okay. Like, teaching them about that kind of stuff is one thing, but having these tests isn't going to create better humans. It's going to create sociopaths. Not the a-hole. Wow, I'm trying to find the words for how wrong and messed up this is. Please don't make your kids live with this whole parade of red flags any longer. He wants your kids to fail these tests. He's setting them up to fail by outright lying. There were no Skittles. Lie. There was no lost dollar. Lie. And he has the nerve to call your kids dishonest? My husband comes from a religious background. I have to say that since my family are non-practicing Christians, he always criticizes them, saying they're hypocrites, and is always uncomfortable spending much time with them. The one he doesn't get along with mostly is my sister. He thinks she's living carelessly and irresponsibly. I told him to keep his opinion to himself and told her to ignore him as a compromise. Christmas is usually spent with family. This year, my sister announced that she wanted to bring her new boyfriend with her for Christmas celebration. My husband was rather annoyed by this and said he wouldn't attend this year's Christmas celebration if my sister brings her boyfriend. I asked why, and he said because it makes him uncomfortable. He told me he'd go if my sister did not bring her new boyfriend. I went to visit Mom and saw my sister there. I brought up the possibility of my husband missing out on this year's Christmas celebration and asked her if she'd reconsider bringing her boyfriend. She asked why, and I said it makes my husband uncomfortable. I explained that the family's known my husband for years, and it's not fair that he misses the event so her boyfriend of 4 months can come. She asked what she was supposed to do, and I asked if she'd reconsider bringing her boyfriend. I think he wouldn't care that much anyway, compared to my husband. She nonchalantly said that maybe my husband should not come, if it's a big deal for him. I lashed out at her for saying that and told her that she has no respect nor regard for my husband, who's a family member and is considered family for years. She had an attitude, basically saying it was not her problem. It escalated, and Mom urged me to go home, and I did. Utter silence on my husband's side. But Mom and Dad are upset with me for what happened and said that I'm putting unnecessary pressure on my sister and making her feel guilty for the situation my husband created. They suggested I apologize, but I said I needed time to see what happens. Okay, I feel like I should include that a fair number of family, my dad's side, are pressuring my husband to come. They were shocked and upset after they found out he may not be attending. He has a good relationship with them. You're the a-hole. Your husband is creating all the drama. He can be as religious as he wants, but imposing his beliefs on others is unacceptable. You're the a-hole. Your husband's hang-ups are no one's responsibility to deal with but his own. You enable him to be a judgmental jerk at the expense of your own family. Why would they want to spend Christmas with someone who is constantly passing judgment on them and who doesn't even seem to like them all that much? Your husband's uncomfortableness doesn't get to dictate the plans of your entire family. You both need to get a grip. You're the a-hole, and so is your husband. Your husband sounds very judgmental, and it's a shame you tolerate and defend that behavior. Everyone else does not have to live their life according to your husband's beliefs.